Welcome to Psychic Bent. My name is Carrie.
And I'm Kim. We are two sisters wanting to help other psychics learn and grow in their abilities and to help educate about spirits, angels, and everything psychic. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us today for the next episode of the Clairs Part 2 Clairaudience. We hope you enjoy this episode.
So we're going to jump into that clairaudience, Claire, which is the clear hearing. Different things you might experience if you have clairaudience as one of your stronger clairs. You're going to hear chatter, sounds, music silently in your mind. You'll hear voices when nobody is around. You'll hear your name spoken. This happens to me quite often. You hear your name, you look around, and no one's looking at you. No one's talking to you. So,
I've had that too.
Yeah. And it makes you stop and turn because someone just called your name. So that happens quite often with clairaudience. Often auditory listeners. So you enjoy listening to audiobooks, lectures, podcasts. This is so you, Kim.
Oh, this is so me. I am addicted.
You are the podcast queen. And you so love many. And you love your audiobooks.
I do.
Usually when you're clairaudient, you have a huge appreciation for music, which explains, Kim, I think, our band days, which remember what happens at band camp stays at band camp. But you have to have an appreciation for music to be a young adult playing music in band.
Yes.
Connecting with your sixth sense. You're highly sensitive to sounds around you. Loud noises bother you. I cannot go to a concert that's going to be loud.
Oh, me neither. Me neither.
I was invited by a very dear friend to go see Pentatonics. She was going and she knew that was our mother's favorite group. And I said, I'd be excited to go, but I can't. She said, why? I said, because there's going to be people there. And she just looked at me funny. But it was going to be loud. And then I was going to have to deal with all the people and emotions. And I can't deal with my bubble of protection with loud noises around me. I need to work on that, but that's very difficult for me. It's because I'm having to concentrate on too many things, and I kind of, my bubble gets a little worn out.
Yes, I can understand that one.
You might hear sounds that people around you don't hear, which is always fun to say, hey, did you hear that? And I just heard somebody coughing, and they're like, no. Okay, thank you.
Never mind. That happens to me. That happens to me all the time.
I'm trying not to laugh. I'm sorry. Just like I thought of something really funny.
Sorry.
Thought of something really funny that I'm not going to share with the audience. But it was just like, she's like, that was funny. Don't say it. Okay, so when you have clairaudience, you remember things better by hearing them without seeing or reading. Like you'll hear some people say, well, I don't learn well unless I just do it, or I can't read it, but if you tell me, I'll know it. And that's a sign of clairaudience. I'm one of those that just tell me, just tell me how to do it. That's all I want you to do. And then I'll go on and do it. So that's my comfort zone is hearing, not reading or seeing.
Yeah. Mine is, I have to do it while they're telling me how to do it. If you're saying just do this, I can't. I got to be doing it as they're telling it to me. Is that part of clairaudience? I mean, is that what you're talking about?
Well, if you just need it explained to you, then that would be hearing it. I have problems with someone gives me written instruction with a lot of words. It's really wordy, very wordy, and I can't focus on it. I can't see it. It's really weird. But you could just read it to me, and I'm like, oh, that's what you meant. Why don't you just say that? Why'd you hand me this piece of paper with all these words? You know. And I love to read.
Gotcha.
And I love to read. Don't get me wrong. I prefer to hold a book and read a book where you like to do the audio. So it's not like I don't like to read or can't read. It's just some things are just, it's not clear. I can't just focus in on the meat of it. And that would be why, because I'm clairaudient and I prefer you to tell me, give me the instructions verbally. It'll go much smoother that way if you just do that.
Gotcha.
Yes. And you might notice that you prefer music over TV. Which,
yes,
yeah, I prefer silence or music over TV a lot of times. And then, of course, I'm very selective of what the TV has on it. I'm not big with violence and things like that. And I hate those commercials that show the animals. Oh, can't stand that. Makes me cry. So I prefer music over TV because they don't show you things like that. Or talk about things like that.
Good point.
That's just music. I have control over what music I'm listening to. So it kind of changes with what I need for the day or the moment. But yeah, I much prefer the music. Another thing with clairaudience is you may have mental conversations in your head and hear the other side of the conversation. I remember growing up, I did this all the time. And I didn't really realize, I was always getting accused of daydreaming, which I was, don't get me wrong. But I was having mental conversations in my head. I would do it at school, and it just looks like I'm zoning out, but I'm actually having a conversation and getting answers. And this one is really easier for me to do. And I think most people might find that easier, don't you?
Well, there are people out there that do not have any kind of conversations in their head. They cannot even, they don't have that inner talking. They don't hear an inner voice. I'm like, what? But, I guess not everybody has that.
Again,
happens to me all the time.
We talked about, I believe in the first episode, where you're either born psychic wide open, or you're later in life develop your ability psychic. That a switch just kind of suddenly flips on for some people. But when you're born with it and you're on from get go, you just think this is normal. Until someone tells you, this isn't normal. This isn't normal.
That they are experiencing something totally different.
Yes. So, I have mental conversations all the time, and it's hard to believe no one else does. Or not no one else, but some people don't.
Right.
I get some good information doing it. That I'm going to tell you, solve a lot of problems that way. Oh yeah. I get some good ideas.
Well, that's cool.
When I listen to them, they're good ideas. When I don't listen to them, then it's like, oh, I should have done that.
Should have been listening.
Why'd you ask if you didn't want the answer?
I should have heard you, not just listened.
Yes. Which is totally different. Hearing and listening, two different things.
Yeah.
Again, a different podcast for a different day.
Yeah.
That might go with the dating podcast one. I don't know. Another thing that you may notice is you hear other frequencies and noises outside of the normal range. This can be diagnosed as tinnitus, which is in the medical field. They don't know what causes tinnitus, which I think is really interesting. Of all the modern, tools that the healthcare system has, no one knows what causes tinnitus. I have tinnitus, so I do suggest that if you have the buzzing or whatever in the ear, do get that checked out in case it's a serious medical condition. So make sure. But my tinnitus is in my left ear, and that's the same ear, which is funny that I hear things in. When it's a psychic thing, normally left ear, like when I'm getting talked to. Sometimes it's so bad that I can't actually hear out of my left ear the noises. Occasionally, I've been getting, it's happened 2 times today. I get this little beep. I'm looking around, what just beeped? And it's like, then I realize I heard it in the left ear that's got the tinnitus. So a lot of times that could, when your ear messes up or you get the little noise or a little beep or whatever, you're getting a psychic download. So you may not know what that download is. You're not going to get that "this just in, Kim" kind of experience, but you're getting a download. And I always just kind of like, every time I heard the beep, I'm like, okay, thank you for the download. I'm sure you'll let me know what it is when I'm ready, and then kind of move on.
Right. Yeah, I sometimes get the high-pitched ring in my right ear, and I'll ask everybody, "Did you hear that?" And everybody's like, "Nope." So I know what you're talking about, but I don't have the tinnitus as you have.
And my tinnitus, that started about 2 years ago. It showed up. Mm. The gift that keeps on giving.
That it does.
Another thing with clairaudience is you receive messages or ideas in your head as though, they're being spoken to you by an internal source. I have an example of that. I was at work one day and I was in a different department than what I am now. So I was more of a closet psychic in the other department where I didn't, they called me the hippie, which I'm like, okay, you young people don't know what a hippie is. I do bathe. Thank you very much. But they would call me the resident hippie of the department, trying to be funny, I guess, but it is what it is. But, one of the employees named Cindy was purchasing a new home, and she was very excited. And I just got the message that said, you need to offer to go to her house and do a cleansing, which is recommended anytime you're moving into a new location, to cleanse the area, get rid of residual, feelings, residual energies. It's just a very good practice, to do that when you first move into a new location. And so I'm like, well, okay, she's going to think I'm weird, but hey, Cindy, congratulations on your new home. When are you closing? I would love to come over before you move in and just do a house cleansing as a, welcome home gift to you. And she was very excited about that, which I thought, okay, interesting. So I went to her house. We set up the time and day and we went in, and I just basically told her I just walk through everywhere first and then come back and then do the cleansing, because I want to know what's in the house. I don't want to come across something, oh boy, wish I'd known you were here, situation, because there's different kinds of cleansing and different kinds of techniques you would use. So we walk through and we get into the dining room, and I'm like, oh, hello. Okay. The former owner's here with us now. I'm like, okay. I didn't say anything, but she was very interested in what I was doing. And it was an elderly woman. And so I just kind of like ignored her as I kept on walking through. And then we, go out into the garage, and there's an empty apartment above the garage. And oh, here's a man. Okay, he has nothing to do with here. He just wandered in. He just likes hanging out. Okay. So we go back to the house, and I'm going to start the cleansing. And I said, okay, well, I just need to know if you want me to cross over or attempt to cross over the two entities that are currently residing on the property. And she's like, what? I said, well, you have an elderly woman in here that's the former owner, and then you have the one in the garage. And she wanted to keep them there. And I'm like, okay, these are not novelties. These are people. So, if you want me to, so I'm trying to stress, if you want me to help and cross them over, I would be happy to do it, but they're not, party guests or anything like that. I don't know why people.
Right. Party tricks. Yeah.
Yeah. So she said, no, just do the class cleansing, and said, okay. So I did the cleansing and finished that. And, her stepdaughter had come in at the end of it, and she was really interested. She did a lot with tarot cards, and so she was very interested in what I was doing. So she accompanied me on the final part of the cleansing just to watch and see what I was doing. And we finished, and I sat down, and I reassured Cindy that I didn't ask anybody to leave. I did tell the man in the attic that he could stay as long as he behaved and didn't interfere with anybody. I said, but the
Yeah,
woman...
because that was not his home. That was just where he decided to stay.
Yes, and I felt that there had to be definite ground rules. When I was up in the attic over the garage, I told Cindy, I said, well, he's right here if you want to come over. He's standing right here. I said, if you were to come here, stick your hand out in this area, you will feel almost cold electricity. And she did. She said, oh my gosh. And she did it again. I'm like, oh. So she could feel him. She couldn't sense him, but she could feel him. And I think he was allowing that to happen, and that had to take some energy for him.
Wow.
But I think he wanted to be recognized that he was there. But I set some very definite ground rules on what he was allowed to do. If, he can't mess with anybody in the house. He couldn't come to the house. He had to stay there or leave. It was his option. But he couldn't do both. But like I said, when we were sitting down and we were going over everything after the actual cleansing, and I told him what the ground rules were for the man in the attic, I get this real fast in my head, she doesn't like my wallpaper. I was like, oh, okay. So I turned to the young girl and I said, she's very upset with you. And because she was very upset. I mean, the way she said it was almost like I was mediating an argument. It was,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a different experience. That was the first time I've ever had that, but she was very adamant. She did not like her wallpaper. And I just turned to the girl and said, she's very upset with you because you don't like her wallpaper. And Cindy started laughing. She hates that wallpaper. It's got big red roses. I said, well, look, gang. She has feelings too. And would you just walk into someone's home and say, I hate your wallpaper, even though this is your home now? It was her home. And she obviously loved that wallpaper and she's very offended. So I would suggest that you apologize to her. And, looked at the stepdaughter and said that. And then I turned to Cindy and I said, and before you do something or make a change, just please remind her that this is your house now and you're going to love it and take care of it, but you're going to also have to make changes to the house and that she should be better with these changes. But, oh man, she was really upset about that wallpaper.
Oh, that's too funny.
And it was funny because I had no idea that there was a wallpaper issue. I didn't know about the wallpaper at all.
Yeah. Now, I had an experience at in a hospital where I had a car accident and I was leaving the hospital and there was a older woman sitting in the portico. She had just come into the hospital with her mom. And I was getting ready to leave. So I heard in my head to go sit down and talk to this lady while I was waiting for my husband to bring the truck to the entrance to help me get into the truck to go home. And I was sitting next to her and she said, oh, so you get to go home now? I said, yes. I said, they finally released me. I'm going to be okay. I said, so why are you here? And she said that she was there she brought her mom in because her mom was having an episode and that they were probably going to be keeping her overnight. I heard in my head to tell her that this was a night that she needed to go home and get rest because she was going to need to be rested and ready for when her mom came home. So that is what I told her. She had said that her mom was going to be there and kept overnight for observation. And I said, well, this is the time for you to take care of yourself tonight. Go home, get some rest, get some sleep, and then come back in the morning to be there for your mom. I said, you need to have rest in order to be able to take care of her. And she said, okay. And by that time, my husband pulled up and I limped out to the truck, climbed in, and we went home. But I was told that I needed to reassure her Mom was going to be fine overnight. She needed to go home and get some rest.
Well, that was a very important message, too, because she needed to take care of herself.
Yes, I think she was a 24/7 caregiver to her mom.
Yeah.
So I think this was a moment where it was time for someone else to take care of Mom overnight, and then she could go home and get some rest. And then I don't know what the outcome was. I wasn't given a message that Mom wasn't going to be fine or was going to be fine. It was the message to her that she needed to go home and get some sleep. Because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. She needed to go home and get some sleep.
She did. She needed to go home. Well, yes. I'm hoping that these stories that we've shared can make you a little more comfortable when you get that inner voice talking if you have clairaudience. I know some people find it difficult to cope with hearing the inner voice for direction or guidance. I do want to point out, though, that if you hear a voice that's telling you to do self-harm or harm others, or the message is negative, derogatory, abusive, please seek medical advice. And I would also recommend doing a protective exercise on your psychic protection, because that is not how spirit talks to you. Your spirit team is loving and they desperately want to help you. They desperately want to work with you. They're just waiting for you to say, hey, let's do this. Come on. They're not going to intervene. They're not going to step in. Your guardian angels will step in if there is a life-threatening situation or a situation that you're not supposed to be in. They will step in without being called. But your spirit guides are just waiting. You know, I always kind of visualize they're hanging out on a couch, just bored, waiting for you to say, hey, come help me with this. So that's just how I see it. I'm not saying that's how it is, but that's how I see it. I think, well, like lounging on a couch, bored to death. They don't even have TV to watch. They have to watch my life, so they're bored. Or laughing at whatever I just did. But, you know, so just go out there and ask them. Ask them for help. That's what they're waiting for, is for that.
And my image is that they're sitting there waiting for their phone to ring, saying, ring, ring, why won't she call?
So however you see it, there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, you didn't know that about me, did you?
No, I didn't. You didn't know about the sofa, so that's okay.
So that's okay.
Yeah. It's a flowered sofa. It's kind of beige color.
You know, I pictured that when you said that.
It doesn't surprise me.
Right?
Yeah. That's the sofa.
Okay. Yep. So, messages can come to you in a variety of forms. You could hear them as your voice, and it's a subtle message that sounds like you're having the internal dialogue, but the voice is our spirit guides guiding us and tell us the truth. They never lie to you. They tell you how it is. But you may hear it as your voice coming through to you. You could also hear spirit voices. These voices resemble voices of friends, relatives, acquaintances that might have passed away. They could be voices of someone else's relative, and so on, if you're receiving a message for somebody else. As you said, hearing sounds, hearing your name when no one is there, hearing noises such as knocking, tapping, talking, or radio sound, whispers with no source found around you. That could be spirits. That's sometimes the whispers could sound like maybe a radio in the distance kind of effect that you could be hearing. And you could be hearing warnings, which could be ringing or yelling. Slow down and listen to it. It could be a spirit warning you of danger or a stressful situation that's ahead.
I have an example.
Carrie, I think you have an example of that, don't you?
I do. Sorry. Didn't mean to butt in. I was excited. Oh, I've got an example. I was with my ex-spouse. His family had a family farm, and he and I were going out to just check on the farm. It was nighttime. It was dark, and we got right close to it. I'm about ready to pull into the drive, and I got this, get out of here, go now, go, 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 get out, go. And it was like, whoa, whoa, and it scared me. But it was like, we got to go. We got to go. We can't go in. We got to go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. And I mean, I flipped out, and he wasn't used to that. He's like, what the heck's wrong with you? And I'm like, we got to go. We can't be here. We have to go. We have to go. And finally, just to get me to be quiet, I think, he said, fine. And we turned around and we left, and we never, went to check on the farmhouse. And the next morning's neighbor called and said people had broken into the farmhouse the night before. And I believe that they were there or getting ready to go in, but I feel more that they were there and they did not have good intentions. Mm. And, I don't normally get scary sounding messages from Spirit Guide, but I mean, let's talk about this. If Spirit had said, I don't think it's a good idea for you to check on the farm tonight, it might be bad, would I have listened to that? Probably
Most
not.
likely not. You would have blown it off.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, I don't see why not. We're here. We drove all this way. I mean, it was around the block. And so, Spirit gave it to me, or my angel gave it to me as a go, get out, go. And it did scare me because I had never received a message that intense. But it got the reaction that was needed, and that was very intense, and it was, I flipped out. I'm not going to lie, because it was danger. It was danger. That's all I could hear. Danger. Don't go. You got to leave. Get out. So when you get something that strong, I suggest you listen to it.
I guess so. Yeah. Now I have to say that I think I have had that happen once. Well, at the house we used to live in, I would get that kind of voice saying, don't go down the stairs right now. Don't even open the door. You're going to see something that you don't want to see. So I wouldn't even open the door to the basement when I would get that, because I just knew from hearing the don't open the door right now that I was going to see something that was probably going to disturb me quite a bit.
Was this at the old house where you got shoved down the stairs in the basement?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
It's that house.
That makes sense. Yes, you didn't want to see it. If you had gone down there that time, you would have actually seen the entity. Yeah.
Yep. And one time the message said, if you open that door, you're going to see arms reaching out from the stairs, because they were like open stairs. They didn't have the
oh my gosh.
The kick plate, the kick plate on the back of them. They were just open steps.
That's horror movie material right there.
Yeah.
Of course you don't want to see that.
Yeah. So it was like, the voice said, do not open that door. This is what you're going to see. And so I did not. I never would. Anytime I heard that, it was, okay, it's not the time to go down to the basement. Laundry can wait.
Yes. Laundry can always wait unless you're running out of clothes.
Oh, yeah.
Again, another podcast for another time.
Another podcast.
Podcast is my kick today, guys. I apologize. So, how to develop your clairaudience is to be confident. When you get a message in your mental mailbox that comes in, share it confidently. It's not your ego coming through with something to say. It's something that you're being prompted to say, and that message is needed regardless of what it is you're supposed to say to that person. You need to share it with confidence. It may, and one thing is you're sharing a message and it may not make sense to them then, but then they get home and something happens and, oh, yeah, that message made sense. And you may never know when you give a message. I mean, I have one person that I've done a reading for that was very impromptu, and she messages me periodically with other questions and other things that come up, or when you said this, and then she wants to let me know and gives me confirmation that I was spot on with it, which helps when you know you're spot on with something. It helps with that confidence level.
Yeah, and that confirmation, that is so important.
Yes.
And a lot of times you don't get that confirmation back from people, because they've moved on with their life.
Yes. Yep. So another way to develop is to meditate. And again, you've been warned, you're going to hear meditating and journaling throughout all of our podcasts because it's so important to help you on your spiritual path. But meditating is very important to develop all your clairs, like I said. But there's different forms of meditation. So you need to find what works for you. There's guided meditation where you just sit quietly and you listen to the app through your earbuds or however you want to listen to it. There's sitting quietly and quieting your mind. You can do breathing techniques to help you breathe, because a lot of us don't breathe. We hold our breaths and we're not breathing like we're supposed to. So a nice breathing exercise is good. Doing something creative is also a form of meditation. Gardening, walking in nature. But if you're going to do the walking in nature or gardening, please don't have your earbuds in and electronics. You want to just be in the moment of what you're doing. And that's where that meditation is going to help calm you. It's going to help you feel better about yourself. You're going to get messages possibly when you do this. I usually get something coming through. So I really recommend find the way to meditate that is good for you. Not everybody can quiet your mind. If you're going to try sitting quietly to quiet your mind when a thought comes in, acknowledge it. Okay, thank you. I got that. I'm letting you go, and then go back to silence. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it.
Now, do you recommend, like, when you're doing the nature walk, gardening, stuff like that, do you recommend them having the journal with them to write down what they are receiving? Or is this just a time to let your mind do what it's going to do?
I think you want to concentrate on letting your mind do what it wants to do, but you should have a notebook handy to write something down when you get a message. Or if you don't have that, you're going for a walk and you don't even carry pen and paper, you could also take out your phone and record what you have. I sometimes will, instead of journaling, I'll email myself something, because I don't have the journal with me, because I have two and I still misplace them. So I'll take my phone out and I'll email myself what I want to write down, and I'll give it a title. So then when I want to go back and look at it, I just search for that title. If it's a dream, I'll say dream and then a title. So when I do in the search thing on my email, it pulls up everything that has dream written to it, and I can find the email, find it. So you could do it you can journal it that way as well. But I think if you get something in your mind, you do need to acknowledge it, and you do need to write it down. It's probably something very important. It might be random, but it's important.
I use the voice messaging on my app on my phone whenever it's something that I think I need to look up later or research later if I get something that pops in.
Yeah, I do, like I said, the email a lot when I'm dreaming, because when I'm reviewing a dream I just had, because I can type faster than I can write. So that's a lot of times. Most of my emails to myself have to do with dreaming. But if I'm at work and I get a hit on something, I'm like, okay, I don't know what that meant, but I'm going to go ahead and, shoot an email to myself because I don't have my journal or whatnot. I prefer the journal because there's something about actually physically writing that I enjoy. It just, I don't know, it just feels more personal, maybe, for me. But yeah, so I usually prefer the journal method. But if I don't, who doesn't have their phone with them? You don't want to use electronics while walking in nature, but you still want to have your phone with you in case you fall and you need help.
And you need help. Exactly.
Help.
Yeah.
So, it's always good. You're going to have your phone with you. You're just not going to be listening to music or anything. Just, being in nature. Now, the throat chakra is linked to this clair, obviously. So how to work with your throat chakra is singing. You can use essential oils like peppermint oil, eucalyptus oil, and lemon oil. Herbs that you can take are slippery elm, which I know that sounds kind of gross, but it comes in a capsule. It's really, I take that, so it's really it's not slippery at all. But there's slippery elm. There's marshmallow root. There's licorice root. Now, licorice root tastes like black licorice. So if you do not care for black licorice, then you may want to avoid the licorice root. And then, of course,
one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite tastes.
I know, but there's so many people that are repulsed by that. But yeah, that I take licorice root as well, and it's chewable. So it's really kind of like, I don't do refined sugars. I don't eat them at all. So it's kind of like having candy without having candy.
Oh yeah,
it's a very subtle licorice taste. It's not strong, but it's subtle. I think it's subtle. Other people might think it's strong. And then ginger root is a good one as well. Now crystals, my thing. Blue lace agate, which lessens feelings of anger and hurt and can help you access your higher self. Sodalite. Now sodalite is actually a stone that's white, but it's like chalk. When you remember as a kid, you would put food coloring and some water, and you could dip your chalk in. You pull the chalk out, it'd be that color because the chalk just soaked it all up. Sodalite is like that it's easily colored, and a lot of times you'll see it looking like turquoise, or it'll be dyed red. It doesn't matter if it's been dyed, it still has the properties. And what sodalite can do, it can boost your creativity energy. Lapis lazuli promotes mental clarity, eloquence, and self-awareness. Amazonite eases anxiety and facilitates honest communication. And those are just a few. There's so much more. And we're actually going to do an episode on chakras. And we're also going to do an episode on gemstones. I'm excited about that one, if you can't tell. Those are my favorite little beauties. And I have gemstones throughout the house for different reasons and different things, so we can go through that. A lot of people like to meditate holding a gemstone. So if you're going to meditate and you're working on this clair, you want your clairaudience to be strong, meditate holding one of these stones I listed, and that will also help facilitate opening up the clairaudience. I have a lot of useless information in my head. So anytime you want to know something about stones, I can just hook you up. I have people that will Google or they're on Pinterest, and they get a picture of maybe, a listing of certain stones and what they do, and they send it to me and ask me, is this true? Is this right? I'm like, well, you're on the internet. You could cross-reference it, but yeah, it's right. But yes.
But some people don't trust what they read on the internet.
I know, because the internet's not always correct.
It's not always correct.
I know, but I just think it's funny, because I'm like, okay. Like, well, yes, because, your stones can overlap each other. Their properties overlap. So you could have lapis, that does promote mental clarity, but also has other benefits that do not necessarily always pertain to clairaudience. They have other things they can help you with as well, in addition to the clairaudience. Now, I do have a daily affirmation for this one, and that would be, I welcome the gift of clairaudience into my life. I am open to receiving guidance in my life. I am open to receiving guidance and positive inspiration from my spirit guides and guardian angels through the gift of sound, and together we work as one. Now, I would like to point out that your ego talks to you as well, and your ego is that voice that has nothing good to say. You're not psychic. You just got lucky. You don't know how to do this. That's your ego talking, and learning to let ego go is basically, to me, just as hard as letting go of your fear.
Mm-hmm.
And ego is not very nice. Like when you have self-conversations that are not good, if you're putting yourself down, that's ego. And you'll get no connection with spirit when your ego is big. And actually, some psychics lose their gift when they get very egocentric. That ego takes over, and the more ego you have, the less ability is going to come through, because you're not listening anymore. You're not open to the communication because it's not all about me, all about what I do. Oh. This is me. Or you're listening to it tell you bad things, and you're believing these bad things. Well, and that lowers your psychic vibration. So spirit can't talk to you anymore because your vibration's too low. and you're not really wanting to hear it. So for me, when I find ego rearing its ugly little head, I tell it to go wait in the car. I'll be at work. You just go wait. I mean, that thought pops in. Good thing there's no thought bubbles over my head. Some people at work would be like, oh my gosh, she's crazy. But I'm like, go to the car. I'll deal with you when I get off work. So I basically, I scold ego like a child that's misbehaving in the grocery store. And if it says something I really don't like, I tell it to go wait in the trunk. And it works because I've trained myself to, I don't care for that thought. No, go wait in the car. I'll deal with you later. And basically forget about it.
Right.
It works for me. I can't tell you. You may have to find a different way to deal with your ego, but, I listened to, I can't remember the name of, he's a motivational speaker, and I have downloaded a lot of his stuff that I, like to listen to on the way. And there are different affirmations, and he goes alphabetically on an affirmation. You get something different. And he does ego, and he basically says ego means edging God out.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Now, whatever you refer to God is, you'll hear me refer to as God, but it could be whatever you use for the term. Not everybody has the same, concept. It's the same person, but it's however you call them. But yeah, ego really made me think about it with using that way, edging God out. I don't want to edge God out of my life. So, okay, ego, you got to go wait in the car. And I will find the name of that. And Kim, could you put that in the podcast notes and in our Facebook?
Yes.
Yes, because it's really good. And when I'm having a kind of feel my vibration is low and I'm in the car, I will put it on and I'll just listen to, and I put it on mix so it doesn't go in alphabetical order because I like it better that way. Like to shake it up.
Yep. And it puts the randomness of it there.
Yes, I don't know what's next, so I kind of like that. I think it makes me listen more and not zone out.
Right, because that message could be for you.
Yes. Now, how to develop clairaudience, a good way to develop clairaudience is listen to a piece of music and just close your eyes. Obviously, you're not going to do this while driving, but close your eyes and try to hear every little melody, every little sound. My favorite piece of music to do this with, and this is, of course, being a band geek, is we played, was it the Waltz of the Floors? Every Christmas.
I believe so.
Every Christmas. And what's the other name for that song? Isn't there another name for that?
I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, the band director always referred to it as Waltz of the Flowers. But you hear it at Christmas time. But I played bass clarinet. And so that was the undertone, the undertone to the music. And to me, that's just the best example of I can pick up all these different instruments because there's so many different melodies going on at the same time in this particular piece of music. So to me, that is, in my mind, was what I chose to use to try to hear everything. But pick music that, you could sit and listen to that's not going to drive you crazy and that just has some different little notes to it because you want to hear every little sound. It's like walking in nature. You want to listen to what's going on around you. Find a place, sit under a tree, close your eyes and just listen to a bird. Oh, hear the bird, a babble of water running down the creek. The wind blowing through the trees. Listen for all the little sounds.
Ask questions. Ask spirit and your guides for an audible message. Ask a specific question and ask for an audible message. Look and listen for the message. It could come in the form of a song, the radio, sounds, or even conversations that you may be having with someone or a conversation that you're just hearing from around you.
Well, when you're talking about songs that pop in your head, that happens a lot. Especially the morning I called Kim to say, hey, let's do a podcast. I'd had a particular song in my head that would not stop. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to drinking my morning coffee, I'm going to read the lyrics of the song. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that was Spirit trying to give that to me. Now, having said that, I've been having, it's happened last week quite a few times. There's a annoying commercial, I find annoying commercial on TV where I think it's a diabetes medicine, and the people are dancing and singing around like it's a musical.
Yes.
And I have that song play over and over and over again. And I'm not diabetic. I don't take medication. And I'm like, what are you trying to tell me? I don't get this. And I'm like, and I'm not going to sit through that commercial just to see, because it just annoys me. And so finally I said, could you just change to a different song to help me understand? And it was just like, snap, zippity-doo-dah, zippity-dah. Like, well, okay, thank you. So evidently it wanted me to be happy and singing around. Happy, dancing around and singing. So I probably was needing to light up. But I was just like, please change the song. And then I had zippity-doo-dah all day. But it was funny because I'm like, going, please just change it. I just can't take this anymore. I need a different song to understand. And that was a point you said earlier, is just ask for clarity. Well, I asked to change the tune and it worked. And that message resonated with me more, once I got that.
It allowed you to actually focus
Yes.
on the message, not the irritating song that you were getting, because then you couldn't focus on the message. You were just like, I can't stand the song.
Well, I think most commercials are silly, and I detest drug commercials only because sometimes you just don't need a drug. You just need to change something in your diet, or, do the holistic approach. And that's my personal view. That doesn't pertain to anybody else but me. So if you need to take medication, go for it. Take what you need to. So a drug commercial was not the way it got my attention, but not in a good way.
You were totally missing the message, because this just was not the item that could actually help you focus on what that message was. It was bothering you too much.
And I also want to point out with Clairaudience, because that's, I hear my spirit guides talk to me and my spiritual team. When I ask a question, I get an answer before I have finished asking the question, which is really weird, because I'd be saying, well, do I need to? No. Oh, but no, but I didn't. And so if I don't want to hear no, I sometimes will be like, well, maybe you misunderstood the question because I didn't get to finish, and I still get no, but in the same fashion before I finish, it's still no. And, and sometimes if I ask a third time, I get no answer because basically I'm not listening. So I won't get an answer at that point. But for me, I'll hear something before I finish asking a question. Of course, obviously, Spirit can communicate and knows my question, because I think of the question before I'm going to ask the question. So they've already heard it. And so I start to physically ask it, and and I get the answer. So be prepared that you may get, when you start communicating and asking questions, you don't finish it and you get it. I was told that's common, that's not rare. So the more you communicate, you got the answer, go with it. They may not tell you a second time because, you asked the question, they answered it, and we're done.
Yes. And be willing and open to accept that answer, even though it's not the answer you wanted to hear. Because it's
really, the answer was going to help you to be at your higher self, or what is necessary. Also be prepared that their time frame is not earthly time frame. So you might get a yes. Well, now you expect it by that night. I got a yes. I need the answer. So it's going to happen tonight. And it just means, yes, it's going to happen. You may want to ask when.
Follow-up question.
And don't say what date, but are we talking 2 years down the road? Yes. Okay. Well, maybe could it possibly be 1 year down the road? No. Okay. So it's possibly 2 years down the road. Okay. You could ask questions like that. And I think it's real important to ask for a time frame. So you're not thinking, well, I got it wrong.
Yeah, that's the broad question again.
Exactly, the broad question. I have a pendulum, and we're going to go into psychic toolboxes in a different episode, but I have a pendulum, and I love my pendulum, and it works with me. I always ask it to help me with things, and it does. And my husband was like, the pendulum doesn't know what you're doing, and I'm like, oh yeah, it does. And I said, ask it something that you know the answer to, would be whatever the answer would be. And my pendulum swings forward for yes, sideways for no. And he said, would I ever buy a new truck? And he's not he doesn't like to, spend a lot of money, and he's very frugal, which is good. But it said yes when he asked it, and he said, that's not working. Well, the timeline, 2 years later, his truck engine blew, and he had to buy a brand new truck. So was it coincidence? I don't think so. It was the timeline. He didn't say, would I be buying a new truck in the next 5 years or 3 years? It was, would I ever buy a new truck? And in his mind, that answer was no. Yeah.
Surprise.
So, but like I said, that example was basically not on pendulums, but on time frames. Yeah.
The broad question.
Right. And timing. The timing's very important, because if you're given the answer and it happens today, but what if you're not prepared mentally or enough in your journey of learning to handle it? Yes, I want my third eye open. Well, okay, but be prepared. Do the work, do the meditation, get prepared mentally. And so when you do get the answer, yes, this is going to happen. If it says in the next year, okay, what do I do to need to prepare for this then? So I'm ready. Because if you're not ready, you're not going to get it. Whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? It's like opening a business and you have no money.
You need that startup cash.
You do need assets, so and sometimes it happening does depend on you doing whatever work is needed prior to. If you don't release your fears and you're asking, I want to do readings, or I want to be able to help the police with finding missing people. But if you don't release your fears and don't work on your clairs and growing your ability, you might be told yes, but it may be 10 years down the road before that happens, because you weren't ready. When we were going over clairvoyance, Grandma Gray kept popping in.
Grandma Gray did?
Yeah. Or I should say great grandma. Great grandma kept popping in. Because she was obviously clairvoyant, but it was just like, okay, Grandma, okay, I know you're there. So I just had to say that, because it was just kind of like, she kept like, okay. So I just want to point that out, that great grandma's here. She says hello.
Well, Grandpa popped in when you were talking about Grandpa, so.
So there we go.
Yeah.
This brings us to the end of the Clairs Part 2 Clairaudience episode. Please join us next time when we begin with claircognizance. May your light shine bright.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, Psychic Bent. If you enjoyed Psychic Bent, please like, follow, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We can be reached on Facebook at Psychic Bent Podcast. Our email address is psychicbent1@gmail.com. May your light shine bright.